There has been a leak, although it hasn't been corroborated yet, that alleges that Hunter Biden, through a series of texts, had used the N-word. Now, first off, Hunter Biden has all sorts of issues. There's really no use in trying to defend him. If it is proven that these are in fact his text messages and he used the N-word, it's wrong. I'm 100% against it and no one should be defending it. With that said though, it appears that conservatives are now pretending to care about racial slurs by exploiting this for political purposes. So look, I don't really want to read the wording in his text. It was allegedly a text to his lawyer where he, you could take a look at it for yourselves. As the source reports, the messages that were leaked show Hunter Biden asking his lawyer, who is white, how much money do I owe you? Because N-word, you better not be charging me Hennessy rates. Anyway, after that, you have a bunch of right-wingers who are piling onto Hunter Biden to, again, pretend like they care about racial slurs, when in reality, they have been apologists for racial slurs, and more importantly, racism within this country. Dinesh D'Souza, when will Hunter Biden be held accountable?
Wait, are you trying to cancel him?
I know, it's kind of amazing.
Freedom of speech. When I say the N-word, the Constitution says I get to say it. When Hunter Biden says it, I pretend to be outraged. I mean, I'm really outraged.
And then you have other conservatives, Sean Hannity also tried to, call him out on this, like father, like son. Joe and Hunter are caught up in racial controversies. Joe, who stood against desegregation, which is true, by the way, in terms of busing, seems to be covering his tracks, while Hunter allegedly used the N-word in several texts. And so one final thing I want to go to is Ben Shapiro's take on all of this, because Ben Shapiro, of course, is the arbiter of what is and is not acceptable language pertaining to the Black community. Let's watch.
Yeah, of course.
Here is the full story about Hunter Biden. Now, again, I will say that when it comes to the use of the N-word, there is a difference between calling a Black person an N-word with an ER at the end, and in jest, using the N-word that ends with an A to describe a white person. Now, the latter is also really crude and gross and stupid. It's not racist in the same way that it would be if you were just shouting the N-word at a Black person, which is the height of racism, obviously, in American society.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation. We appreciate it. So look, first of all, conservatives got to make up their minds. Is it freedom of speech to say the N-word and to be celebrated, or are they outraged?
No, but they don't have to make up their minds. That's the thing. Like, the standard that we apply to ourselves in being consistent, being honest, that is not the standard that they apply to themselves, and they don't have to. They don't have to. Their supporters, their voters, their followers are totally fine with them being hypocrites, changing, their position on things depending on what's politically beneficial at the moment. And that's the case here. They love it. They love it. They love the lies. They love the hypocrisy. They live for it.
Yeah, and so Anna makes this point often, and I think it's a really good one. Guys, don't get distracted by this social cultural noise, right? Both from the right wing pretending to be outraged in a story like this, and corporate Democrats using it as a bludgeon against the left and sometimes against the right, okay? So while they're playing all these games with you, all of them are letting their corporate donors rob the country blind.
100%.
Right? Sean Hannity's part of that racket. Ben Shapiro is very much part of that racket. And so is mainstream media, right? So there's only one part of this story that is actually true and relevant. Hunter Biden, like you said, we're not gonna be defending him. Why would anybody defend Hunter Biden?
Right,
Who
exactly,
cares?
yeah.
Right, like he's
the most irrelevant person on the planet. Yeah, like he's not a person in a position of power like his father is. He's got issues, all sorts of issues. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and he had addiction issues, etc. But I don't know if he's a good guy, bad guy. I don't care. He's not in charge of Middle East peace, right? Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of Donald Trump, he's like, I'm gonna give him the Middle East. Actually, when we broke down all those stories by the end of the Trump presidency, you realize that Steve Mnuchin, basically the Treasury Secretary, ran domestic policy. Stephen Miller ran immigration and border issues. And Jared Kushner ran the rest of foreign policy. And so That's his son-in-law, and then let alone what he gave to his daughter and son. Now those guys were relevant. Was Tiffany Trump relevant? Not at all. I don't want to know about Tiffany Trump. I don't care about Tiffany Trump. Barron Trump's a minor, right? But I'm not talking about minor or not. Tiffany Trump's an adult, son, obviously daughter of Donald Trump, but had no role in policy whatsoever. So leave Tiffany alone. She's got nothing to do with this. I don't know if she's a good person or a bad person, and I don't care. Same thing for Hunter Biden. Joe Biden didn't come into office and be like, okay, now Hunter Biden in charge of all domestic policy or foreign policy. Of course not, right? If he had, then he would be relevant and we'd be talking about Hunter Biden. Okay, now the one part that is true, as Anna pointed out, is Joe Biden's track record on civil rights is actually pretty terrible. And you remember that moment in the debates, and this almost cost Kamala Harris the vice presidency, when Kamala Harris called out his record on busing and said, I was the little girl who was bussed. And Biden didn't see it coming at all because he's used to being, as a corporate Democrat, as the chief corporate Democrat, he's used to being protected by other Democrats and by all of the corporate media. So when she called out his busing policy, he couldn't believe it. He was like, you remember in the debate, he was like, Joe, don't do that in the middle of the debate. You're giving away your hand, right? I say that kiddingly, I love that he did it, right? Because it was so obvious he didn't see it coming. Now, it's actually worse than that, and we told you during the primaries, after the primaries, look, he went to South Africa and pretended to fight with Nelson Mandela, pretend to get arrested. That's a pretty big lie about a very important matter, right? And I can go on, and I did go on. And when we did, corporate Democrats hated us. And they're like, oh, you're helping the right wing, you're helping Trump. No, we're in the middle of a primary, okay? And your guy's not the right candidate. We were right as usual, they were wrong as usual, both in terms of policy, because Biden ain't no FDR 2.0. He's given up his presidency, he's doing nothing. He's letting Manchin and the Republicans and Mitch McConnell run the place. We were right about a policy, but on politics, he barely won by 43,000 votes in 3 states. He almost lost, the establishment Democrats almost lost to Trump again, right? So we were right on all those fronts, but that's long gone now, that's old history, okay? So the reason I tell you that though, is because the right wing, there's one thing that they are frustrated by, which is not wrong, which is that the corporate media does cover for corporate Democrats. So talking about Joe Biden's civil rights history was verboten. Oftentimes when we talked about it, it was not other Democrats who yelled at us, it was so-called reporters who yelled at us, and news anchors and so-called journalists who were like, you're not allowed to talk about it. Dude, you're supposed to challenge people in power. I despise Donald Trump. I can tell you everything that's wrong with him, and I have. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't say things that are true about Joe Biden or any other Democrat. And by the way, you believe that too if you're a mainstream media reporter, because you said all the terrible things in the world about Bernie Sanders. You didn't mind hitting him. You don't mind hitting any progressive, right? You don't mind hitting the right, but when it comes to your beloved Joe Biden, no, that's a nope. I mean, we're now having CNN anchors ask Jen Psaki, what is the media getting wrong? How else can we serve you, right? So as you can tell from this, we are not defenders of the Bidens, and we are not defenders of the Democrats. But guys, keep it real. You really think the right wing is concerned about the use of the N-word? And that Hunter Biden is some sort of demigod that's secretly running the place, and that because he said the N-word, the right wing doesn't want him to run things anymore? None of that is true, and you know it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.